The lights of the underground bunker flickered just once before going dark. Moments later, a shockwave rippled across the Iranian desert, leveling the facility buried deep beneath the mountains outside Natanz. Simultaneously, another detonation struck Isfahan, then Fordow. 3 nuclear facilities, crippled in under 8 minutes. This was not a warning. This was a strategic decapitation, and it was only the beginning. At precisely 2:34 a.m. local time, B-2 Spirit bombers, operating under radio silence, entered Iranian airspace. Refueled mid-air by KC-135 tankers, they flew low and fast, escorted by Growler jammers and F-22 Raptors. Their target packages had been preloaded for weeks, possibly months. Each stealth bomber carried 2 30,000-pound GBU-57 bunker buster bombs, massive ordnance penetrators designed specifically to shred reinforced underground sites. According to defense officials, at least 14 of these bombs were dropped, GPS-guided, laser-tracked, calibrated for staggered impact to maximize shockwave destruction. What followed was a coordinated swarm of unmanned systems. MQ-9 Reaper drones, likely launched from US bases in the Gulf, blanketed the sky with surveillance. Within hours, a second wave of airstrikes targeted Iranian air defenses, communications nodes, and radar arrays, crippling Tehran's ability to respond. Cyber units, possibly from US Cyber Command, reportedly launched simultaneous operations against Iranian command and control infrastructure, aiming to disorient and delay response coordination. One anonymous Pentagon source described it as a digital blackout, timed to the exact second the bombs dropped. Why now? The strike, known as Operation Midnight Hammer, was months in the making, but its execution followed 2 key developments. First, Israel's own airstrikes on Iranian territory earlier this month, reportedly without prior US approval, had escalated the region to a boiling point. Second, fresh intelligence obtained by US satellites and Mossad assets allegedly showed Iran fast-tracking uranium enrichment at levels near weapons grade. Analysts suggest this was the red line, triggering Washington's decision to act preemptively before Tehran could reach breakout capacity. President Trump, who had previously hinted at the possibility of action, confirmed the strike via a live address just hours later. The United States will not allow a nuclear Iran. Tonight, we have acted decisively to eliminate that threat. He emphasized that the strike was limited, surgical, and defensive. Yet the scope and precision of the operation suggest otherwise. This wasn't just a message, it was a knockout attempt. Iran's reaction was immediate. State television interrupted regular programming to announce a cowardly act of war. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei vowed severe and unforgettable revenge. Crowds flooded Tehran's Azadi Square, chanting "Death to America," waving black flags, and calling for retaliation. Within 18 hours, Iran launched a barrage of over 130 missiles targeting US positions in Iraq and Syria. Most were intercepted, but a few struck forward operating bases near Erbil and Al-Tanf, causing casualties. Details remain classified. Meanwhile, Iranian-backed militias in Lebanon and Iraq escalated rocket fire into Israel, prompting the IDF to retaliate along multiple fronts. For the first time in over a decade, the entire region seemed one miscalculation away from a full-scale war. Western media coverage was split. CNN framed it as a high-stakes gamble with potentially catastrophic consequences. The BBC questioned whether the strike truly neutralized Iran's nuclear capacity. or merely delayed it. Meanwhile, conservative outlets like Fox News praised the operation as a bold and necessary move to restore deterrence in the Middle East. Analysts on social media went into overdrive, some lauding the precision and effectiveness of the strike, others warning it only entrench Iranian hardliners and accelerate covert weapons development. But here's where the narrative gets murkier. Official Iranian casualty numbers have varied wildly, from a low of 14 to a high of 78. Satellite imagery analyzed by independent watchdogs shows widespread destruction at the 3 nuclear sites, but the exact extent of damage remains contested. Iran claims no radioactive leakage occurred, a claim repeated verbatim across state-run media, but the IAEA has yet to verify access. Western intelligence sources, speaking anonymously, suggest Iran is concealing the true scale of the damage and loss of key nuclear scientists. One particularly disturbing rumor that a senior figure in Iran's nuclear command structure was killed in the Fordow strike. If confirmed, it would mark the single deadliest blow to Iran's nuclear program since the assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh in 2020. What makes this moment even more volatile is the global backdrop. Russia and China have both condemned the U.S. strike, calling it a violation of international law. Moscow warned of grave consequences, while Beijing summoned the American ambassador, stating that unilateral aggression would destabilize the entire region. At the UN Security Council emergency session, the United States defended its actions as self-defense under Article 51. Iran, for its part, called it an unprovoked act of nuclear terrorism. Europe, once again, finds itself divided. France has called for immediate de-escalation. Germany has urged restraint. The UK has backed the US, citing Iran's repeated violations of enrichment limits. Behind closed doors, however, European diplomats are reportedly furious at being left out of the decision-making loop, echoing frustrations from earlier Israeli actions. There's also the economic ripple effect. Within 24 hours, global oil prices spiked 14%. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of global oil passes, was temporarily closed by the Iranian Navy, prompting panic among shipping giants and a scramble among Western navies to secure transit lanes. Lloyd's of London raised war risk premiums for oil tankers in the Gulf by 300%. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard deployed speedboats and drone boats near U.S. vessels in the Persian Gulf, leading to several tense standoffs. No shots fired yet. Let's zoom out. Strategically, the U.S. strike on Iran is a high-risk, high-reward maneuver. Best case, Iran's nuclear ambitions are set back by years. Deterrence is restored, and allies in the region breathe a sigh of relief. Worst case, Iran doubles down, proxies ignite the region, and an asymmetric war drags in global powers with divergent agendas. There's precedent. In 1981, Israel struck Iraq's Osirak reactor. In 2007, it struck Syria's covert nuclear site. Both times, it worked, temporarily. But Iran isn't Iraq. It isn't Syria. It's larger, more ideologically driven, and far more embedded in the regional proxy architecture, which raises a chilling possibility. What if this was just the first punch? Some analysts have floated a provocative theory that the US is trying to bait Iran into overreacting, justifying a broader military campaign to eliminate its missile and proxy infrastructure. Others argue the opposite, that this was an act of desperation by a US administration, eager to appear strong in an election year, hoping to manufacture a foreign policy win. Still others believe the real target wasn't Iran's nuclear sites, but its credibility. In other words, the strike was psychological warfare as much as kinetic force. There's also the question of leaks. Iranian officials claim they were tipped off hours before the strike, a possible reference to back-channel communications via Oman or Qatar. If true, it suggests the US may have attempted to give Iran the opportunity to evacuate key personnel and avoid casualties, an effort to keep the operation limited and avoid total war. But here's the paradox. By sparing lives, Washington may have increased the pressure on Tehran to retaliate, not out of grief, but out of pride. What happens next depends on two things: whether Iran chooses strategic patience or rapid retaliation, and whether the US has a follow-up plan. History shows that strikes like this rarely end the story. They begin it. Already, militias in Iraq are calling for attacks on US assets. Hezbollah has threatened action from the north. And inside Iran, hardliners are pushing for a complete withdrawal from the Non-Proliferation Treaty. If that happens, the nuclear program could move fully underground, beyond IAEA oversight, beyond public accountability. The Pentagon, for now, is on high alert. Carrier strike groups are repositioning. THAAD and Patriot batteries have been redeployed to shield key bases, and US embassies across the region are on lockdown. The world watches, but the game has changed. So the question lingers, not just what will Iran do, but what will others do in response? Will Russia use the chaos to escalate in Ukraine? Will China test US resolve in the South China Sea? Will North Korea seize the moment to accelerate its provocations? In chess, a single move can force the entire board to shift. That's what we may be watching unfold now. One strike, 3 targets, a region already in flames, and a globe now on edge. The real war may not be the one we just saw, but the chain reaction it sets into motion. And the scariest part? No one's really in control of what comes next.